Hey everyone. This week we are going to be talking about one-step equations with multiplying and dividing this time. Last week we did with adding and subtracting. This week it's going to be multiplying and dividing. So what that means is that we need to remember our inverse operations with multiplication and division, which I'll give you a hint. Multiplication and division are each other's inverse operations. They undo each other. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about and review today, and then you're going to practice on your own. Okay, so inverse operations. Remember that inverse operations, the inverse of multiply is divide, and the inverse of divide is multiply. Okay, so remember that those are inverse operations. If you ever need to undo multiplication, you divide. If you ever need to undo division, you multiply. So taking a look at some of these examples, we're just going to write the inverse of each of these operations and numbers. So the inverse, remember, of multiply is divide. So if this says times 5, and know that sometimes when we see times 5, we'll see it maybe with an X, or maybe we'll see it, we might see it with a dot, like times 5. You might see it with parentheses, times 5, or you might not see anything at all. You might just see it smushed right up against the letter. But know that there's a bunch of different ways to show multiplying. And if anything is smushed right up against the variable, that is multiplication. For example, if you had something that was 5, A, that really means 5 times A. Okay, but remember we don't use the X because it looks like an X. All right, so again, if we're undoing multiplying by 5, what you need to do is use the inverse of multiply, which is divide by 5. Okay, and maybe we'll write even a little note to remind ourselves inverse of multiply is divide, inverse of divide is multiply. Okay, so number 13, remember that slash, or not number 13, the one that says divided by 13, that slash means divide. To undo divide, we need to multiply. So we're going to write times 13. And remember the other ways we could do that is times 13 or parentheses 13. Okay. What is the inverse of dividing by 7? Dividing by 7, the inverse of dividing by 7 is times 7. Okay? And the inverse of times 9 is divide by 9. Okay? So when you see multiply, you undo it by dividing. When you see dividing, you undo it by multiplying. To be able to solve these equations, this is what it's going to look like. In an equation, this is what the operations are going to look like. So you need to be able to, I don't want to adjust that. You need to be able to tell what is happening to each variable. So to get each variable alone, I need to look at what is happening to each variable. And in order to do that, I need to look, okay, so I see 6y. So I know when two things are smushed together, I need to divide to undo the multiplication. So this says 6y, that means 6 times y. I want to undo the times 6, so I divide by 6. And that leaves me with just y by itself. Those go away, and I have just y by itself. Okay, next one. I want to get rid of the divided by 7 on this next one. It says h divided by 7. I want to get rid of dividing by 7. Okay, to get rid of division, you multiply. So you can show it a couple ways. You can show it as times 7. You can show it as times 7. Or you can write times 7 right next to it, and that will get rid of the division because you're multiplying. Okay, and that leaves just h by itself. This was just y by itself. Okay, next one. Next one is n divided by 10. Ooh, I heard the word divided by. To get divided by, to go away, I need to multiply. So I'm going to multiply by 10 times 10. Sweet, now n is by itself. The next one says 15p. When two things are smushed together, it means multiply. So p is being multiplied by 15. I do not want it multiplied by 15. I want p by itself. So I undo multiply by 15 by dividing by 15. And that leaves me with just p by itself. Okay, this is going to be really helpful when we start to actually solve these equations, one-step equations, with multiplying and dividing.